I got Scooter below me. I'm in my living room because my office space is completely trash because we're moving. But yeah, I had a really fun topic that I wanted to talk about today. Is what if you wrote yourself into the person you want to become? Okay. So recently I came across the idea that if you want to write a good story, you should write about something you wish would happen to you. So at first, it sounded like an ordinary writing advice. While you write what you know, write what you care about, put some part of yourself into the story, and the more I thought about it, the more personal the idea became. It wasn't simply suggesting that writers borrow from their experience, it was suggesting that they write from their desires. So, in essence, it's like write about the life you wish you had, write about the person you wish you were, write about the places you want to go, the things you want to experience, and the version of yourself that you have quietly imagined becoming. So there's something really romantic about that in some ways. Writing is one of the few places where we can want something completely, even when we have no idea how to achieve it. We can give a character the confidence we don't yet possess, the career we were afraid to pursue, or the freedom we feel unable to claim. We can allow that character to move somewhere new, create something meaningful, and stand up for themselves, fall in love, and even start again. And you can even become an entirely different person. So no one can tell us that these desires are unrealistic because technically they belong to someone fictional. So that was the convenient thing, about fictional and fiction and everything like that. It gives us a place to be honest while still pretending that we're talking about somebody else. If you're ever a big fan of D&D, it's really similar of what you do. Most of the time, people's first characters are D&D characters that are either people that they want to be, people that they think are cool, or a person that they are already. But sometimes it's uncomfortable to admit what we want directly, It can feel selfish to say that we want to be admired, taken seriously, loved deeply, or even remembered, I watched a housewives swap the other day, and the dad was saying that he would much rather have his children want to hold his hand on his deathbed than maybe be healthy and have more strict rules around in their house. And it was really sad because like he got choked up and everything about that because that's what he wanted, And sometimes people can't admit that. Some people can't actually get that deeper meaning. It can be embarrassing to admit that you may want a quieter life or a more meaningful career, a beautiful home, or the courage to become someone different. Yet often it feels much safer to give those desires to a character, just kind of shove them off, We can say, this is what she wants, they want, even when they have our fears, they have our sense of humor, our habits, and suspicious number of memories that closely resemble to our own. Our traumas, our preferences, even down to the food that we don't like and do like, Fiction creates distance between us and our desires, and that distance can make honesty easier. I got a text message. It says, yes, please. I am being roped into going to Thailand. Maybe. I'm using my watch. Shh. But fiction does create that distance between us and what we want, and that distance can sometimes make wanting what we want easier. It lets us study our wants without having to immediately defend or act upon them, especially if you have a lot of people in your life that is depending on you, or a lot of people in your life that are basically sitting there ready to judge you. A person might write about a woman who lives in a cottage, grows her own food, spends every morning reading beside a large window. That doesn't necessarily mean that the writer needs to purchase several acres of land and begin researching chickens. It may simply mean that they're tired. The cottage may represent peace, privacy, or the desire to live at a slower pace. And that's okay. You can be your little witch girly pop in the woods. You can desire that. You can design your home around it. But that doesn't mean that you have to do it, Take the deeper meaning of what your desires are, right? It's about sugar. If you crave sugar, that normally means your body's lacking something. If you crave salt, that means your body's lacking something. Your body and your mind are the same thing. If you crave this solitude or maybe this adventure, maybe that means that you are missing something. So You can think about it in this sense as if someone might write about a character who constantly travels and never stays in one place for long, like a gypsy. Perhaps that person doesn't truly want to live out of a suitcase. Maybe they want freedom, novelty, or the relief from feeling that their life has become repetitive. You see where I'm coming from? A character who becomes famous and respected may not represent a literal desire for celebrity. They may express that much quieter wish to know that their work matters, to be recognized, to be put as an importance in someone's life. Our fantasies are not always instructions. Sometimes they're symbols. They express needs that we have not yet learned how to explain in ordinary language. So this may also be why people romanticize certain careers and lifestyles so intensely, right? We romanticize writers. The first one that comes to mind is, guys, I'm struggling. The man who wrote It, Stephen King. He is one of the most world-renowned, well-known, I don't know if he's the best horror writer, but he is one of the most well-known horror writers. People can be like, oh, I want to do that. I just want to sit at home, write horror books, and be happy. Do you know how much drugs that man took? I don't know, look it up. But I'm definitely pretty sure he wrote It under a lot of substances. Don't credit me, but I'm pretty sure that's it. The life of a writer, the life of an artist, professor, traveler, gardener, musician, even a small business owner isn't what you always imagine it to be, okay? We imagine the published book, the sunlit studio, the peaceful garden, or the charming shop on the quiet street. But we rarely imagine the invoices, the scheduling problems, the revisions, taxes, or even the 2 hours spent trying to remember a password to your freaking Microsoft Word account, because who the heck uses Microsoft Word anymore? No one's fantasy begins with a beautifully filmed montage of administrative tasks. Okay? The grass isn't greener on the other side, right? Okay, the grass is not greener on the other side. I have a friend who constantly thinks the grass is greener on the other side. They're working at a job that gives them so much money in today's day and age. They basically get the whole winter off. Traveling expenses at a discount. Yeah, they hate their life. They hate the day-to-day because the people that they have to deal with to be able to get the income that they get suck. Looking on the outside, it's like, wow, you got a cushy job. A cushy job. But on the inside, it's a highly stressful job. It's a job that not a lot of people would want. Not a lot of people are good at. And if you're not good at that job, you're not making money. Food for thought. But still, romanticizing a life is not always foolish, okay? There's a difference between romanticizing and actually wanting it and thinking it's better, okay? Sometimes romanticization is the beginning of motivation. It allows us to imagine that another way of living might be possible. The problem begins when the imagined life remains completely separate from the real one, though, okay? You can constantly have these high achievements, think big, plan all this stuff. How are you going to get there? How are you going to do it? If you want to buy a nice home along the seaside, how are you going to do that? How are you going to afford it? Do you know how much insurance is on coastal properties? Look it up. So we tend to watch videos making up for this, watching people in the day in the life, everything like that, But think about it in the sense that if you're watching somebody do a get ready with me, how do they set up the camera? What do they do? How are they actually saving time in progressing throughout their day while also trying to film it? Has anybody ever seen those hiking TikToks where they expose content creators for hiking, where you set up your camera like a distance away and then you walk back and then you pretend like you walked that way for the first time, or vice versa, where you set your camera down and then you walk away from your camera like you're leaving it, and then you gotta turn around and go back and get it, right? Like, come on. Social media isn't always the answer of how people actually live their lives, okay? We admire people who are confident, disciplined, adventurous, or expensive without allowing these qualities to influence our own choices. The fantasy becomes somewhere we visit mentally rather than something we learn from. Life is all about learning. Okay? People are placed in front of you so you can learn something. A situation happens to you for you to learn something. And if that same situation or those same type of people keep popping up, there's a high chance you didn't learn what you were supposed to learn. Okay? No. Some people in the comments may be saying, or some of you may be thinking, well, what do you mean? I'm constantly getting screwed over. Or these people are constantly taking advantage of me. It's like, you allow yourself to be that way. You don't actually sit down and recognize the meaning behind learning this situation, right? If you stub your toe on the corner of your door frame, you're probably never going to do it again because you learned, hey, I need to watch out and not walk that way, you know? Life is all about learning, adapting, and growing, okay? So go back into our fantasy thing, right? So we may offer a way to connect our two worlds because simply, if you write it, you can't essentially decide what a character wants. And eventually, the character may decide what the character wants, okay? You deciding for something doesn't always mean it's what that person wants. It's like having a child. It's like having a dog, you know? You want your dog to play with this one toy. It may not play with it, you know? Every story is built from decisions. What the character does if she fails. What does the character leave a situation? How does the character leave if a situation is hurting them? You know, do they apologize? Do they try again? Do they avoid the problem for 3 months, and hope it develops its own interests and quietly moves away? These decisions are what reveal the character, okay? They also require the writer to imagine what courage, patience, honesty, and self-respect might look like in practice, okay? You are literally observing, almost like, I don't want to say like a god, but like a being, a guider, a guidance, you know? You're watching this happen, okay? You have to think about what would they do? What are their fears? If you're afraid of spiders, would you stick your hand in a cobweb-filled box or a shoe that you haven't touched in 5 years? And you're like, there might be a spider in there. If I'm afraid of spiders, I'm not sticking my hand in that dang thing, you know? But think about it is, what if you're not afraid of spiders? Stick your hand in it. You know, you could be afraid of something else. You don't like to get your hand dirty. Whatever, you know? What if there's another bug? Like earwigs. Anyways. But I digress. So suppose someone writes a character who remains calm under pressure, okay? The character doesn't immediately panic when something goes wrong. She pauses, looks at what's actually happening, and decides what to do next. After spending enough time writing out this character, you, the author, may begin to understand that their habits and values mean something, or what they are, actually. Then, during a difficult moment in real life, a question may appear. What would they do? The question may not cause an immediate transformation, you know? It may not eliminate your fear, your anger, or your insecurity. What it can create is a pause between the situation and the usual response. Inside that pause, another choice becomes possible, okay? So in this way, writing can become kind of a rehearsal. By repeatedly imagining how a courageous person behaves, we can begin to recognize the shape of courage. By writing a character who establishes some boundaries, begins again, or continues despite embarrassment, we practice those possibilities before attempting them ourselves, okay? You envision what it is, and then you achieve it. That's part of the, as I say, the planning phase, okay? A lot of times, whenever you have these emotions or have these insecurities or these fears, they can cause you to become rash. I'm looking at my dog being an absolute goober over there. Those fears, those frustrations, those anything. There's a line of that, you know. There's a threshold that you normally won't cross. So she's coming back. Peek my dog. Once you cross that line, that's whenever you become reactionary. That's whenever you start trying to defend yourself, trying to justify your actions, or even could become aggressive, you know? And that's something that a lot of emotionally immature people do. Okay? I'm at fault for that. I do it more often than I'd like to admit, you know? But when you think about that, when you recognize what is that fear, okay? I'm afraid that people judge my intellectual ability. Even though I can't speak very well, I believe I'm a very smart individual. Once somebody starts questioning my intelligence, I start my fear. My fear, I cross it, okay? I'm up here. This is my fear line. And somebody goes, oh, you're not that smart. And I go, what do you mean? And I start justifying myself. I start arguing. I start defending, right? Why? taking that time to reflect and going, what would the person that you want to be do? Would that person argue? Okay, maybe then sure, whatever. But if that's not the person that you idolize or that you would want to be, then why would you do that? Why would you do that? Especially to a loved one, to a friend, to a coworker, to your boss, you know? So in this way, writing can become your rehearsal. Okay? Reworking that. Writing out this stuff can actually help you process your emotions, process events that happen, or maybe plan and try to achieve some goals. So this normally resembles a common advice to imagine ideal self or create, as they say, an alter ego. A lot of women do this in the sense of the her type of thing, and a lot of guys use people as their motivation to do it. That's why a lot of people who are going to the gym and getting like swole are anime nerds, because they are like, I want to be like Jojo from Jujutsu Kaisen, you know, or something. Actually, he's not that muscular. Whatever, you know what I mean. But like, think about a really muscular person, like All Might, for instance. Okay, absolute beefcake. Some men would actually look up to that and idolize it. What would All Might do? Right? Anyways, sorry for my non-anime nerds here. So the phrase alter ego can sound a little dramatic, okay? And as those becoming more confident requires a new name, you know? Like dyeing your hair, getting a piercing, getting a tattoo, you know? In reality, an alter ego, it can be much simpler, and it can be a version of yourself who is just maybe a little slightly more patient, a little bit more disciplined, or maybe a little more willing to speak honestly. Try out a new hobby. Sit down in her kitchen and record a video about a freaking rant that honestly has no idea if anybody will actually watch. Anyways, so this imagined person isn't necessarily fake, this alter ego. This person may represent qualities that actually exist within us, but are not constantly expressed. Asking what the confident version of ourselves would say can sometimes make a situation a little bit more clear, okay? Asking what the calmest version of ourselves would do can interrupt an impulse reaction. We're trying not to react. Thinking about and asking what the person we most respect in ourselves would choose can give us some distance from our immediate fear, helping us from crossing that fear line, okay? If you may see that I'm going back and forth, I'm not a perfect person. I'm going to admit my faults. I have a script typed up right now that I'm reading slightly below the camera. It's okay. All right? Don't think that social media and influencers and content creators are absolutely these perfect things, because we're not. We're at fault. I can't remember crap. I think of this stuff and then I go off the cuff and then I rewatch what I say and I'm like, dang, I can't finish a stupid sentence. Half the time, most of my videos, I'll start a sentence, it's a really good sentence, and then just forget the last 3 words. I literally will forget to say them. Okay. But circling back. Anywho, as my one friend said, anywho, anytime we got on a tangent, we went, anywho, we are often more generous with fictional characters than we are with ourselves. We're going back to All Might, okay? All Might has faults. If any of you have never watched My Hero Academia, I'd suggest watching it. It is great storytelling, okay? There's some parts that are a little rough, but every show has that, okay? But we think about the faults in characters that we support and that we watch and that we read or anything like that, and they have faults. They have faults. Most of the time, good story writing, they grow from the faults. Tangent, okay? The new Avatar: The Last Airbender. Not the animated movie that is coming out, in or out, depending on when you're watching this. But the animated series, the live action series that Netflix has released and is releasing. They are just releasing the 2nd season now with Azula and stuff. I saw somebody break it down a little bit where they were really upset about the writing of the characters, okay? Special effects, great. Bending, all of that stuff, great. Clothing, great. I'm blanking on all these words. Forgive me. All of the visuals, great. You know, the characters look like the characters from the animated show. The bending isn't a joke, you know, and they really do try to show off that it is a form of martial arts instead of just magic. And you know, they did a great job with that, right? Casting, spot on, okay? But the biggest problem between the animated kids show and the Netflix show of Avatar: The Last Airbender is the characters, okay? In particular, their flaws and their motivations, right? You have the husk of the character, okay? A lot of modern day stuff is like this, where they maybe have a flaw, but don't actively work on it. Or maybe have a flaw that is a little bit like, we're gonna take Sokka, okay, for instance. Sokka is actually one of my most favorite characters from the animated series. I love how they introduced a non-bender and how he kept up with the ever-growing powerful benders, a part of the group, part of the gang. And one of Sokka's biggest flaws was that he was a misogynist. I believe that's the right term. He was a sexist against women, right? And a lot of men are like that. A lot of women are like that, or it's just like women aren't capable. Women's only job is to be in the house and cook, take care of the children, clean, But sadly, in today's society, that we can't function like that, okay? I mean, I hate to say this, unless you're working a job that pays you so much money, or you got a crazy inheritance, everybody in the family is probably gonna have to work. If you have children and they become teenagers, they're probably gonna have to work to get money for themselves, to get money to do this. If you live in a middle class, even upper middle class, the woman just doing the cooking, cleaning, and taking care of the children is almost unrealistic anymore, right? I'm not saying women's rights or anything like that. Like, I'm a woman, blah, blah, blah. I have to work. Here I am, trying to do a side hobby where maybe I could potentially earn some money. So please like and subscribe if you like the random tangents that I'm saying here. But in the live action show, Sokka isn't really sexist. Granted, my partner and I, we even talked about this. We don't know if Sokka in the mid 2000s or early 2000s would fly in today's society without being canceled. But that was his character. Because by the end of the show, he respected and he trusted women, right? Toph, Katara, Suki. I mean, he even respected Azula in some ways, And that was the whole point. Sokka had a flaw. Sokka grew and learned from his experiences to get rid of that flaw. Why can't you do that to yourself? You just have to realize what your flaws are, okay? Really, that's it. All right. Anywho, we'll get on a tangent later, but that's what I'm saying, right? So, when we're talking about fictional characters, and maybe even a fictional character that's based on ourselves, we allow them to fail without deciding that they're failures, okay? I'm using Sokka, right? Sokka wasn't a failure. He sucked at fighting. He wasn't really good at doing almost anything. He wasn't a good hunter. He wasn't a good gatherer. He wasn't a really good fighter. He wasn't even really good with people, okay? But we encouraged Sokka. We thought about that character to maybe... We rooted for them to leave those situations that maybe they weren't good at and grow from there, okay? And we didn't diminish them as a person because of it. Okay, maybe some of us a little, but still. I'm still thinking about Sokka, okay? We can understand that characters make mistakes, and that's part of a larger character arc, all right? And rather than making it a permanent proof of who they are, we believe that our character is still capable of changing, even after they make poor decisions. Now, we talk about change, okay? I'm not saying that you have to change yourself. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that you have to hope that somebody in your life will change, because at the end of the day, it is their decision to change if they want to change. It is your decision to change if you want to change. Change the things that you want to change. If you like how you do your hair, don't change it. If you like how you treat people, don't change it. If you get good results and positive feedback from things that you're doing, don't change it. It's the stuff that you're getting negative feedback, negative results, or maybe a desire that you don't, or an outcome that you don't desire, all right? Perhaps imagining an ideal self will allow you to extend some of that same generosity inward, okay? Think about yourself as a character, and you're growing yourself as that character, okay? So there's some dangers in constructing an ideal version of ourselves. Sometimes this person we imagine is not an expression of our real values, but a collection of every expectation we have absorbed from other people, from external sources. Okay. It could be they wake up early, they exercise every day, cooks every meal, maintains a perfect home, is success in their career, nurtures every relationship, travels regularly, develops several hobbies, and somehow never seems tired or overwhelmed. That's what social media really makes us believe. Okay. Now there are some people out there that are like that. Okay. I had a roommate in college. I don't think she'll ever see this, so I'm not going to talk ill will of her, but still. I had a roommate in college. She was going for dental hygienist. Okay. She was a machine. I don't know if she had anything mentally or what that made her so driven and so particular, but I'm gonna lay out this girl for you, okay? And there's times where I try to push what she does onto myself, and I become frustrated because of it, right? She would go to bed at like 9, 10-ish. She would wake up at like 5 or 6 in the morning. This is college, okay? This is college. She would wake up at like 5 or 6 in the morning, make breakfast, work out, study, and then go to her classes. And her classes weren't easy, especially the time that I knew her. She was at like the hard part of her curriculum, right? She would go all day. She would pack a lunch because she would be at her classes during lunch. She would pack a home cooked lunch that she meal prepped. Eat it there, do all of her classes, come home, do chores, right? And she'd study. She'd either go somewhere or be at home and study after she's done chores, right? She'll cook her dinner or whatever. And then she'd go to her sorority stuff. She was one of the leaders of her sorority. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh my gosh, girl, what are you doing? She'd get back 7, 8 p.m., close to her bedtime, do a whole nighttime routine. She had the clearest skin. She was so athletic, and she worked. She worked on top of this. So the days that she worked were the days that she didn't have class. And she just did this every day for like the 2 years I lived with her. And I just sat there and like, I could barely wake up before 9. I had a dog. There she is. She's here. That's Scout. We love her. I had a dog. This girl, she got used to going potty at like 10:30 in the morning, 11 a.m., and I didn't walk her since like 11 p.m. the night before, right? Like she learned to be a lazy college dog, and I just sit there and I'm like, oh my gosh, how can she do that? And I have tried. I have genuinely put effort into trying to be like that, trying to have that schedule, that dedication to myself and everything. And it's hard. It's really hard. Because in some ways, I'm not built like that. I can do it to an extent. But in all reality, I'm not built like that. Okay? Don't push something that you see somebody else do. Freelance headline, US initial jobless. I don't even want to know. The computer's telling me headlines. Don't push what other people do onto yourself if it's not feasible. Okay, I don't know how that girl never became tired or overwhelmed or anything like that. Now, there were some faults. She had a tough time being in relationships, but she was so dedicated to herself and to her career that now I follow her still on Instagram. Now I'm pretty sure she owns a home. She makes really good money as a dental hygienist. She travels the world. She's married, all this stuff, and she's still clear skin, very athletic, fit as can be, and I'm like, go you, right? Sometimes if you think of a character like that, that's not always a person, okay? There's a lot of things that shape a person and shape who you are as a person, and if you really think about it, she was almost like a company with multiple departments. I don't know how she did it. I really don't. And a lot of times when people are like that, they may need funding or maybe need a support staff. And maybe she did. And I just don't know. Her and her mom were this close. Maybe her mom helped her out. Maybe her mom was her motivator. Who knows? But from the outside, you don't know. From the outside, I thought she was a machine, right? An ideal self should not become another standard to use to shame the person we currently are, right? If imagining this person like this only makes us feel inadequate. And instead of actually being a guide, a motivator, you almost become your own critic whenever you start comparing and start diminishing who you are as a person and not, hey, we should grow, right? I'm gonna take a pause. Am I recording still? I am. We're at 33 minutes. This is a rant. I'm so sorry. But the person we hope to become should not stand at the end of our lives looking backward with disappointment. They should understand why we're struggling because they were created from those struggles. They should represent a direction rather than a demand for immediate perfection. It takes time. After all, a good story doesn't usually begin with a finished character, right? If the character is completely perfect, then it's a boring story. It's like D1 writing, D1 character building right there. It begins with someone incomplete. Going back to Sokka. If you watch the first episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender, the animated series, you're gonna see that he is an incomplete character. Very incomplete. That character, a character in the beginning, has fears. They have contradictions, habits, and mistaken beliefs. Those imperfections don't ruin the story. It doesn't ruin their life. They create it. If the character begins as a completely developed person with perfect confidence and judgment, there would be really little reason to keep watching or reading to find out how their story continues, Whew. It's strange, that we often treat our own unfinished qualities as proof that we are incapable of growth. We expect ourselves to possess traits that can only be developed through the experience of not yet having them. When we imagine our dream life, we also tend to imagine only its most cinematic moments. We picture the achievements, the recognition, the beautiful home, or the finished product, right? Yet most of our life is not made from dramatic turning points. It's made from ordinary days, okay? When you think about this, think about it whenever you reflect on memories, okay? Think of happy memories when we do this, okay? It is more like a montage of what happened in our life, okay? If you think about college, if you're out of college, if you think about high school, if you're out of high school, if you think about a very particular point in your life that you did have a lot of fun and you were really happy, you don't remember the nitty-gritties. You don't remember waking up and hating your life. You don't remember how long it took you to commute to work. You remember the good. You remember the key moments, I remember watching my one friend try to memorize another friend's student ID number because they weren't at our school. They didn't go to our school and they wanted to be part of our school's festivities. So they were panicking and thinking that they didn't look enough like our other friends to pass for their ID. And so they were sitting here like styling their hair to look more like our other friend that they're borrowing the ID from. And they're memorizing their student ID number just in case if somebody asks for it, they have to type it in. I remember that moment. I don't remember the moments that I was insecure about my outfit. I don't remember the moments that I was upset that somebody else couldn't come or something happened, I remember the good moments. I remember the montages. You don't remember the nitty-gritty, okay? Whenever we imagine our dream life, we need to think about it like that, okay? And whenever we think about it, it is mostly the most cinematic moments. We picture the achievement, the recognition, the beautiful home, or the finished product. I'm repeating myself for a reason, okay? But most of a life is not made of dramatic turning points. It's made of ordinary days that you make the most of. The ideal version of ourselves probably spends much of their time doing things that would never appear in an inspirational montage. Answering messages, clearing up space in their house or their apartment, attends appointments, practices when they don't feel inspired, saves money, rests before exhaustion forces her to stop. They deal with small problems before they grow into larger ones, right? When you think about it with your toilet, everyone has a toilet, I hope. Why would you wait until it gets moldy and gross before cleaning it? The first sign of that should be the indication that I should clean it. When you're growing out your hair, unless you want it long, why will you keep it long? Or your leg hair or anything like that, depending on if you're a guy or girl or whatever. Why will you wait until the problem is really serious for then to handle it? Why not just maintain it, Get that haircut every once in a while. shave your legs once a week. You know, put your laundry away a day after you do it. You know, don't wait until you do 4 loads of laundry and then put every piece of clothing that you've ever worn in your entire life away all at once. You know? The person we want to become is not created only through major decisions. They're created through ordinary days. So for that reason, one of the most useful questions we can ask about our imagined life is not, what does this person actually achieve? But, what do they do on an average day? Okay? And think about it in the sense of, they are you. What do you like to do? You know? I love listening to music. I've been finding this YouTube video channels, it's probably AI music, and I hate that, but it's whatever. But they're 1940s type music that are playing in the other room. Very romantic, very dreamy. I love it. I love it. I love it. It makes me feel happy, you know? Use that. Use that. If you're putting away dishes and you're not really happy, get a little snack and munch on it while you're putting away dishes. Give yourself that little reward, right? So think about that. Think about what makes you happy. Think about how you want to be spoken to. How you want to handle if you make a mistake. How do you want people to recognize whenever you achieve something? You know, how does this character speak to themselves when they make a mistake? How do they spend time whenever they have an unexpected hour of free time, you know? What do they do whenever they're preparing for an event? What do they no longer tolerate? You know, what do they do when no one's watching and there's no praise available? What do you do when no one is watching and no one depends on you? Because there's always something watching, always someone watching, there's always someone depending on you. That's yourself, okay? You could do Big Brother, like Big Brother's always watching. Oh, you know, if you have any Amazon or Alexa, Google, iPhone, they're always listening and watching you. Oh, no, not really. I don't know, probably. Who cares? Then you get targeted advertising that you actually want instead of just random crap that you don't want. Anywho, these smaller details are where fantasy begins to become practical. Okay? Character development, both fictional and real, is usually slow. A person doesn't become brave because they experience one brave moment. They become brave by repeatedly choosing to act while fear is present. If you think about My Hero Academia, I'm using so many references and exposing how much of a stupid nerd I am that's also uncultured because I'm only referencing 2 culture things. My Hero Academia, Deku, Izuku Midoriya, right? His whole motivation is he wants to become a hero. What would a hero do, right? A hero will smile in danger, smile against fear. A hero will help whenever they don't need to, or whenever they might not need, they probably shouldn't, you know? A hero is there to support and to inspire and to make people feel safe. That's what he tries to envision himself as, and that is his motivation to help himself become that way. A person does not become disciplined because they have one unusually productive day. They become disciplined because they return to something even after missing a day or losing motivation. Confidence doesn't require insecurity to disappear. It develops when insecurity is no longer allowed to make every decision, right? I bet whenever you clicked on this, you didn't know this was going to be an inspirational, motivational video. You're welcome. Just kidding. Each small action becomes evidence. Reading 5 pages becomes evidence that we're someone who reads. Creating something imperfect becomes evidence that we are someone who creates. Speaking honestly during one difficult conversation becomes evidence that we can advocate for ourselves. A single choice does not completely transform our identity. It introduces a new possibility. When that choice is presented, the evidence becomes harder to dismiss. Eventually, the person who once existed only in our imagination begins to become familiar, you know, feels familiar. You're more comfortable with it, right? It's like when you move into a new home or into a new apartment or get a new car, okay? Or change up your room, you know, it's uncomfortable at first, right? But then you slowly become comfortable with it. you get used to opening your door a certain way. You get used to setting your stuff in a certain spot. You know, you get used to how a setup is, how your seat is positioned, where you have your hobbies, you know, where you eat your food, watch your shows, sleep. And that's time. That takes time. It's not going to be immediate. Your first night staying at a new place, you're not going to be that way. Like if you stay at a hotel, you know, by the third or fourth day, if you stay that long, it's more comfortable than the first night there. The first night there, your stuff isn't really unpacked, or if it is, you can't confidently automatically go to where you put it unless you're absolutely crazy and really good at remembering that stuff. But like you figure out how to use the shower. You learn how much toilet paper the toilet can flush. You learn what channels the TV is set to and what you can watch and can't watch. You know, that's stuff that it takes time to get familiar with. Think of yourself like a hotel room, right? Think of yourself like a new home. How are you gonna make it personalized to the way that makes you feel good, feels happy, and works towards the place that you want to be? So perhaps this is why it could be useful to write about an ordinary day in the life of a person we want to become. Not the day everything finally works out, not the day you receive an award, buys the perfect house, or reaches the end of their transformation. Just a normal day, okay? Think about that. What would that look like? You know what your normal day is. You know what your normal day is. Don't lie to yourself. You know what it is. If you place your fictional character in your normal day, okay? Think about it. You have to think really hard. It's not what you would do. What would your fictional character, with the morals, the goals, with the aspiration, and with the dedication and discipline, do? Okay? When do they wake up? What does their environment feel like? How do they respond when their plans change? What do they do before work or before bed? How do they treat other people? How do they treat themselves? What do they protect? And what do they make time for? Those are the really big questions. You know, if you want to pause, rewatch that, write that down, I really recommend that, because that's the stuff that I did. That's the stuff that is helping me become better, because I'm not perfect. I'm here trying to express that. Open your eyes, okay? Open your eyes to this stuff. After writing that day, we can choose one detail and attempt it in our real lives, right? Because that's in our day. That's in our normal day. You know how long it takes you to get to work. You know how long it takes you to get to class, or you know what you like to eat and what you don't like to eat. You know how much money you have. You know what do you want to do, right? And if you attempt it, think about it. If this person reads before bed, maybe we can read a few pages. If this person creates regularity, maybe we can spend 10 minutes making something that doesn't need to be good. If this person keeps their space peaceful and clean, maybe we can clean one small area today. The purpose would not be to perform an entirely new personality overnight. Okay, that's unreasonable. It would be to borrow one quality and see what happens. You know, trying to make that a habit, trying to make that a consistent thing, right? If you front load yourself, and I'm looking at my ADHD people here, if you front load yourself, you're not going to stick with it. You're not. I don't want to be that guy, but you're not. Writing about a dream life will not magically make it appear. But I wish it could be that way, you know? I've imagined several scenarios involving unexpected wealth, and the universe has shown so far very little in that narrative. You know, I work a career that is a very noble career, right? This is a career that I don't get paid a lot. I don't really get recognized a lot. And I put a lot of effort into it without much return, right? So, what can writing do is make your desire more visible, okay? And it could be anything. It really can be. It can give structure to something that was previously vague. It can reveal that perhaps we do not want a completely different life. And maybe we want to feel different within the life we already have. More creative, more confident, more peaceful, or more willing to act, you know? We're all influenced by stories we repeatedly tell about ourselves. We say that we're not disciplined, we always give up, that we're too shy, that it's too late, or that we're simply not the kind of person who does certain things. These statements may be based on real experiences, but they're still interpretations of those experiences. They're narratives that connect the past and assume the future. And I look really worried right now because like I am, you know? Like this is something that we need to talk about. Narratives can be revised, you know? I did martial arts for a long time before now. If you look at me, you'd be like, oh, martial arts? I used to, okay? I used to do it. And whenever I first started, I struggled to keep up with it, right? I first started with boxing. And at first I was like, oh, I can't start boxing because I'm not fit enough. I don't have good enough cardio, you know? I didn't have the right mitts. I didn't have the right place to go. I didn't, you know, and all of this stuff. And it was particular to the fact of I wasn't physically confident in myself that I physically could do boxing because I had such a high standard of how that should be, you know? Even though I hadn't boxed since in like 5 years. That's a long time. It's a long time. And so when I got started into it, it was a little rocky. I didn't go, or I was not confident and everything like that, right? And it ended up being that I stopped, okay? And I went through a dark moment in my life, and I was just like, no. When I did this, I felt good. I did, right? When I did something that I wanted to do, that I desired to do, that was good for myself, my mental health, my body, but I gave up because of my insecurities, my inconsistency, my perfectionism, you know. That was what I was like, fuck, excuse my language, but F that, you know? And so I started up with an MMA class. I was like, you know what? No, I'm not gonna be afraid of being hit. I'm not gonna be afraid of being kicked. I'm not gonna be afraid of being thrown, takedowns, anything like that, you know? Because that is the part where I need to learn how to do that, so I'm not afraid of doing that. And I started going to class, and at first I started getting that stuff. I'm not fit enough. I don't know enough. I'm not ready. Bull crap, you know? I stuck with it, and I went, and thankfully my coach recognized that I wanted that. I wanted it deep down. I wanted to be there, and I wanted to be good, and I wanted to get better, you know, and it helped me through that. And in that moment, I started to realize that I could do it, that I didn't need to be perfect, and that I didn't need to be fit enough, that, you know, that was part of going, was to start being fit enough, to condition myself. It's gonna be hard at first, right? That's why it's called growing pains. And then soon I started to see others be like that, you know? They'd show up and they'd be unfit. A clear as day, they didn't exercise, they admitted to it and everything like that. They show up to a class and it'd be hard. It'd be hard. And I'd watch them. I'd try to motivate them, you know, our coach would try to motivate them, other people who've been there try to motivate them. But at the end of the day, it was their decision to keep up with that hard thing, to be consistent, to be disciplined, and to not let that perfectionism control them, right? I'm not ready, I don't have enough time, blah, blah, blah. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Right? An average person sleeps about 8 hours a day. There's 24 hours in a day, right? An average person works 8 hours a day. If you have over a 30-minute commute, then I don't know what you're doing. You know? Think about that. Right? You have children, enroll them into a class at the same place. Look for a place that they can also do stuff. I know a father who did judo. He enrolled his son into judo. And he's like, I'm gonna do judo. So they did judo at the same time, right? If your kid wants to do soccer, volunteer as a coach. Practice with the kids, you know? Your kids will learn from you, and they will learn how to persevere through those moments, right? Because they see you as the motivator. And you are your own worst enemy at the end of the day. So, revising a story doesn't require pretending that the earlier chapters never happened, you know, that you took a break from martial arts for 5 years and now you're getting back, you know. It does not mean that denying failure, pain, or regret, right? It means deciding that those events do not have to predict every choice the character makes next. There may be something powerful in writing about the person we would be proud to become, not as a flawless figure, but as a believed human being we can give fears to, we can give contradictions to, setbacks, bad days, because we all have those, you know. More importantly, we can give them choices. Then when we reach a moment in our own lives where we don't know what to do, we can ask what they would do and what their answer is, you know. Not forever, not perfectly, maybe just once, and then perhaps again at a different point, you know. Maybe becoming a different person is rarely one enormous transformation. Maybe it's a series of small moments in which we can act like the person we hope to become before we fully believe that we are them. Eventually, hopefully, if we're consistent, dedicated, and committed enough, we may no longer need to ask what they would do. We'll already know. Food for thought. Food for thought, you know? Anyways, thanks for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed my little philosophical therapy / motivational talk. I don't know what came of me, but I was really motivated to do this today. You know? Trying to do a hobby, trying to work on it, everything like that. Trying to be a better me, right? If you like what I talked about, if you're interested in anything else that you want to talk about, if you want me to talk about, you know, leave a comment on the video. Check out some of my other videos. I got a couple of kooky, quirky little talks like this. I play games from time to time. I don't know, maybe not. I'll keep up with those. Like and subscribe. I'll see you next time. Thanks.